Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm PPE and this is the Peso Pro episodes where we talk about money management tips and peso tricks. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button below. Today we're dialing back a bit and we're gonna talk about credit card basics for everyone who wants to try it out or for those who have one but aren't sure about what's in it and what are the different fees, different kinds of things to think about. We're gonna talk about that in this video. If you're finding more information about personal finance, there are two polarizing opposites in terms of owning a credit card. Some finance experts actually say that credit cards are very, very dangerous and you should stay away from them. Others, however, advocate something called credit card churning or mileage accumulation through credit cards. And this can be very beneficial if you want to rack up points or miles and maximize whatever you're spending in a credit card. I personally am a very big fan of credit cards and I actually try to read all about different kinds of cards and try to maximize the points that I earn. However, there's one big warning. Kung hindi pa po kayo stable sa budget, savings, at pag-manage ng funds nyo, I highly recommend you staying away from credit cards because they're gonna make everything very, very difficult to manage. However, if you've done the first step in the 8 Pro steps towards financial independence, which is really understanding paano ba pumapasok yung pera, ano ba yung pinagkakagastusan mo, and you have a very good handle on your savings and spending habits, then credit cards may actually be helpful for you to make your money management system work and also earn points in the process. Today, we're gonna talk about different facets of a credit card and hopefully this clarifies something that you may not be aware of, or if you have someone who can benefit from this, especially for those starting out, feel free to share this video. So before we discuss about credit cards, let's first differentiate between credit and debit cards. Debit cards are basically what you get as an ATM card when you apply for a deposit account in a bank. They're very easy to get as long as you have a deposit account in a bank that offers ATM services. Essentially, you will get a debit card almost immediately. The good thing about debit cards is that they're very easy to manage, very easy to get because essentially you're just having access to the money that you have in your deposit account. Meaning, yung ginagastos mong pera in a debit card is sarili mong pera na diniposito mo na sa account. You cannot use money that you don't have. So, pag zero balance na yung bank account mo, then wala na ring silbi yung debit card mo. The good thing about debit cards is that you know exactly how much money is coming in and how much money is coming out. However, there's a few cons on debit cards. First off, typically you don't get as much reward points. In the recent years, banks have been offering some kinds of promotions for debit cards now. Like, they will tell you that if you spend X amount, you get a freebie or a premium product. However, it's still no match for what credit cards will give you as reward points. Also, debit cards don't help in your credit score. So if you're trying to improve your credit rating, debit cards actually don't help. On the other hand, credit cards are a bit different. They actually allow you to spend money you don't currently own. So, for those who have a credit card, technically, you're spending the money that is owned by the bank. So, essentially, nangungutang tayo every time we swipe a transaction. However, credit cards are a bit more complex than a traditional utang. Credit cards follow certain rules and certain interest rates that we're gonna talk about in the next few minutes. Credit cards are very difficult to manage if you haven't set up your money management system because you technically are borrowing money from the future and it's very hard to match whatever you earn because yung pumapasok sa account mo stays there for a certain amount of time before you actually pay your bill. The good thing about credit cards though is the inverse of debit cards. So the credit cards give you access to rewards or mileage points that you can rack up to earn free miles or free items. It also helps build your credit score. Also, it gives you access to cash you don't have. So this is also a form of financing that you would need, especially for example, for emergencies where you really need the cash. Credit cards can come in handy, and also they offer a lot of different kinds of promotions like 0% installment, which technically allows you to have access to free cash because you can pay for your purchases in the next 6 or 12 months, whatever the tenor will be. The requirements of opening a credit card are a bit more difficult compared to the debit cards that you can get via a deposit account. But they're also fairly similar across different banks. First is that you have to be at a minimum age 18 and you're a Filipino citizen or a resident foreigner in the Philippines. You have to be able to back this up with valid IDs. Typically, they ask for 2 government valid IDs. You also have to have a contact number and a valid address in the Philippines that you can back up with a proof of billing, be it a utility bill or a certificate from wherever you live. Typically, banks will require you to have at least 1 year employment before you apply, or if you are a business owner, that you have about 2 years of profitability in your business. The annual gross income can start from about 120,000 pesos per year and can go all the way to about 3 to 5 million for the more prestige cards. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about how credit card companies earn from fees and charges. The rewards and miles that you actually earn are not free of charge. It's just that for the majority of people who own credit cards, most of them actually pay fees and charges because they cannot manage the account very well. Essentially, if you are part of the few percentage of people who pay their credit cards in full, monthly, on time, every time, you're actually beating the system because this is the only way that you get those reward points or miles for free. If you carry a balance in your credit card, then you're gonna pay for fees and interest charges that we're gonna talk in a bit. The most common charge that credit card companies give is the annual fee. The annual fee is basically the bank's charge for you to enjoy the card services. You will notice that for the more basic cards, some of them actually offer free annual fee for life, meaning you can keep using the card for nothing, no annual fee. However, the more prestige cards actually will charge you about 5,000 pesos to 12,000 pesos per year to use that prestige card. The annual fee typically depends on the amount of services and perks that you get. For the more prestige cards, you will have access to golf clubs, airline lounge, or even concierge services across the world. So that's why you're also paying for that service. There are ways to get this waived, but you have to check with your bank on what are the requirements and processes that you will have to go through so that you can get these waived. The next most common charge that you hear about is the interest charge. The good thing is, prior to November 2020, these rates can be about 3 to 4% per month, which is very high for a loan. In November 2020, the BSP actually mandated all credit card companies to be at a cap of 2% per month only, making it a bit more manageable but still very high compared to other loans. You also have the late payment fee. The late payment fee is exactly what the name suggests. It can be a fixed amount or a percentage of your minimum amount due. So just check your card statement so that you know exactly how much you have to pay if it's a late payment scenario. Take note that when you pay via a third-party bank, for example, so let's say you use GCash to pay for a credit card bill, that sometimes there's a 1 to 3 day posting window. So just make sure that you give enough lead time so that the payment actually posts with your credit card company, because that's what they're gonna use to account for late payment or not. There are less known fees for credit cards, which is the over limit fee, which means that if you go above your limit for that month, they will either decline the transaction. So some cards actually prevent you from going over limit, but there are also cards that allow you to go over limit for a certain amount. If you do that within the month, you will actually pay for a fee, which is about 500 pesos or a percentage of the total amount due. There's also the cash advance fee. If you took a cash advance from your credit card, you're essentially making a loan. And in most cases, you will pay for a fixed peso amount or a percentage of the value that you've drawn against your credit card as well. The last and least known of the fees, in my opinion, would be the foreign exchange translation fee. This means that every time you transact abroad or online via a foreign currency, you will be charged a percentage of the translation of that FX rate. This can be about 1.7% in some credit cards but can be as high as 3.5% in other banks. So please check your statement so that you know exactly how much you're paying for in conversion. In some cases, this can be the deal breaker because while they give you extra miles and points for foreign exchange transactions, like they will say overseas purchases will have double the rewards points. In most cases, they recuperate the cost because they charge you this fee. So just make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into so that you can make a very, very sound decision when you make purchases abroad. All in all, credit cards can be a great way to manage your finances and maximize the value of your spending. I personally racked up a lot of points that have earned me a few free flights and free hotel stays, or even some items depending on the promotions that the banks offer. So they're great tools as long as you can manage them and pay them in full every time and on time every month. I will leave you with 5 tips on how I personally manage my credit cards so that you maximize the value of the spending that you have. The first and most obvious tip would be to pay in full and on time every time. There is no amount of rewards that will be commensurate to the interest rates that you will pay off your credit card, so just make sure that you have this under control. Some friends actually do a by transaction approach. So what they do is once they swipe a big purchase, they actually pay that via their online banking account. So for example, if you have a BPI account, you can actually pay for whatever purchase you made in your credit card without waiting for your credit card statement. What that will do is you're essentially paying for it almost like you're paying for it in cash, but at least you're able to maximize the reward points that you earn. The statement will capture all of these purchases, and at least your net balance at the end of the month will be small, or if you do this for all transactions, then it will be actually zero. The second one would be to check sales slips or the transaction slip that you are issued every time you make a transaction with your credit card. I personally try to keep these sales slips, especially for big purchases, because these are your confirmation receipts that you can use in case of any disputes or any changes or challenges that you have on your card. For example, if there's a wrong amount or a wrong transaction, you can use a sales slip as a proof of the transaction that happened, and that will be the single most important document that you can present to your bank. Also, especially when you're in restaurants and they allow you to put a tip amount on the sales slip, please make sure that you remember the tip that you identified, because that final number can be still changed after you swipe your card. So just make sure that you check these. They can be small, but they can add up over time. The next step that I learned maybe about 5 or 6 years ago when traveling, and you can also use this on your day-to-day activities, would be to use sleeves or wallets that have RFID protection. Most of the credit cards today now have PayWave or some sort of NFC technology that you can just tap your card and pay for something. Now that technology is amazing because it's very convenient, but that also allows a person standing right beside you to actually get your credit card information immediately with a scanner. With the right technology, they can actually even charge your card without you knowing it. So having that technology on RFID protection will actually block these unwanted transactions so that you know that your card is safe in your bag or in your wallet. The fourth tip would be to avoid giving your credit card details over an unauthorized channel. There are a lot of phishing or even other attempts to get your credit card information. Some are being more sophisticated as the years go by. One thing you can do is you can automatically assume that your bank will never ask you for details of your credit card over email or chat or even a phone call without you initiating a transaction. If you're unsure and if the person is pressuring you to divulge information of your credit card, please feel free to hang up. Call your bank instead. That way you know that you're calling the hotline and you can verify that the call really came from them. In a lot of cases, they will actually ask you for all the details that are in your credit card. This is a red flag because it's very weird. The bank would already have some of these details with them, and they typically confirm your identity via security questions or even a one-time PIN. Some banks even have voice biometrics already. If you also get emails asking you to input your credit card details, check for grammar errors, check the user ID of the email that sent it to you so that you will know if it looks legit, and try to check that with the official website of the bank. In a lot of cases, these fraudsters will not have access to the domain name of the bank itself, so they will use a different, sometimes very weird, but sometimes similar looking domain name. If you don't have the same domain name as your official website with your bank, then you can bet that that is fraud and you can report the email to the bank also so that they can take action. The last tip that I have for you in managing your credit cards would be never to think that the rewards or miles that you earn on your transactions are good reason for you to spend more. Regardless of how good the promotion is, or like if you're thinking, okay, if I spend this much, I would get a free flight to somewhere. It never will add up to the increased spending that you will do because then your budget will be busted. Only spend for what you have planned in your budget and convert that into credit card transactions so that you can maximize the rewards. Every time you inflate the amount you spend, it's still spent even if you get miles for it, and no amount of increased unplanned spend will be enough to offset any miles that you've earned. So, keep true to your budget and stick to your plan. If some of these costs can be charged to a credit card, great. You earn miles as long as you pay in full and on time every time. If these are new costs that you are thinking, okay, I will spend more so that I can actually get more points and save up for more miles, then you're missing the whole point. I hope this was helpful for everyone who is new to the credit card game or everyone who has one but has not paid attention for all of these details. I hope this was all value to you. If you have other comments or questions, feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel because we're gonna post more videos on credit card hacks and tips and tricks. Also, hit the notification bell so that you're notified when the next video is up. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.